Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Our OP is not someone to joke with. Let's start our video with a cool story with a happy ending and a funny legal lesson as a bonus. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Yeah, sure, here's the money. This happened to me in about 2006, so I was 12 years younger and we'll leave it at that. It was a Sunday evening and I'd been out clubbing the night before and lost my jacket. It had my only asthma inhaler in the pocket and I wasn't able to get a replacement until the next day when I could go to the pharmacy and get a repeat. For those who are not familiar with the system, normally you'd go to a pharmacy and pay for your meds and then be allowed to get the same meds the next month and one more month after before needing to see a doctor who'd then prescribe either the same dosage or different depending on how it had been working for you. Either way, I only needed to wait for one day, but I was starting to feel very short of breath. I decided that it would be best to bite the bullet and drive to the after-hours clinic that had a pharmacy open until late. Turns out that was 10 p.m., but I didn't know this at the time, and it was before I had a smartphone. I arrived at the pharmacy and asked if I could transfer a repeat from one pharmacy to another, and apparently that's a no-go. Sort of like getting a warranty replacement from a different store that you purchase goods from. Anyway, I was at the after-hours clinic and would need to see a doctor, but the after-hours is notorious for high prices, at least twice what you'd pay at a regular clinic. I went to the reception desk and told them the story. I said that all I needed was the inhaler. I could get one tomorrow, literally 11 hours away until the other pharmacy opened. Time. On breath, and unbeknownst to me, short on time. Well, they kept me waiting for an hour. Normally, I'd be fine with that because I understand that some people have emergency needs, but it seemed like a slow night. Still, I'm not a doctor and don't know what they were doing, but normally a person with breathing problems is seen right away. Anyway, I see the doctor who does some pretty normal stuff and asks regular questions and then writes up a prescription. I'm fine with that. Head to the pharmacy and find that it's shut. What a letdown. I head to reception and update them on the scenario. The lady doesn't give a crap and says, "Well, you've seen the doctor and have to pay." When I wasn't even asking about a refund, I was asking how I was going to breathe. I figure, F these people and drive to a family member's house some 30 minutes away and get an inhaler from them. I could have done this from the start, but I was trying to be independent and didn't want to show up unannounced that late. Skip forward to the next week and I'm looking at this bill. Keep in mind, it was a dozen years ago and in New Zealand currency, and it was about $100. I decided that I was going to have some fun if I was going to pay it. I went to my bank and withdrew the total sum in 5-cent pieces, 2,000 little silver coins. At this point, I really wish it was like the cartoons and I had a white bag with a dollar sign. Maybe next time. I put the coins into a beanie so it doesn't look like I've intentionally tried to screw them and drive to the pharmacy. I walk in the door and put the hat on the counter, and the noise of the coins sounds brilliant. The receptionist was aghast and asked what it was. I said it was my collection of 5-cent pieces and that it was probably, roughly $100, but they might want to count it. The receptionist accepted that it was probably the full amount and didn't bother counting it. What was the reason she wasn't going to count out one coin until 2,000 coins? Well, in 2006, the 5-cent pieces went out of circulation in New Zealand currency, and before they did, the clinic was donating every single 5-cent coin to Plunkett, which is a charity that looks after the newborn babies and children of New Zealand. Love the twist at the end. Plunkett baby for life. And our second story. My granddad, prankster, and military compliance expert. Backstory. My grandfather was born in 1920 and raised in Germany. As was the custom at the time, he was required to volunteer for the army. The first time he got his draft letter, his boss at the construction company took care of it, as they had government contracts and thus got exempt from military drafts. Unfortunately, that meant he could almost abuse his workers as slaves, as long as it was still a better option than getting sent to invade France. So Grandpa wiggled out of his job with the second letter 6 months later and became a part of the second line. Basically, he came in after the fighting and fixed what the other guys shot and bombed to hell. Mostly comms and logistics stuff. Cue one playful guy who knows his job. The players. GD, granddad or great dude, a good old-fashioned prankster getting drafted. PB, patrol buddy, his unknowing partner in crime. DC, D-head captain, about the lowest of officers that actually volunteered. Hates GD for some unknown reason. Chief, runs the local division, likes his easy military management desk job. All titles converted to current-ish ranks. During his time in the military, GD's group toured France, the Alps, over Austria back home. At some point, he was stationed as patrol guard in a villa/control in southern France in a post they borrowed from a wealthy local. It wasn't uncommon for officers to sneak out a small back gate of these villa grounds to go to the local village and have some drinks, and/or women. It was officially not allowed and even punishable to leave their post for leisure, but officers weren't prone to complain, and the few regular soldiers that knew didn't want to get a butt-whooping from a vengeful officer. The story. About an hour before GD is scheduled for guard duty, he sees DC leave for the village and starts to formulate a plan. After making a few rounds, he convinces PB to hide behind a hedge near the gate and await the return of DC. They wait there for a long time, up to the point where PB starts asking GD to drop it and go back on patrol before they're caught. Luckily, GD is his senior in age, not sure of rank, and PB doesn't have the guts to walk away. About 20 minutes before the end of their shift, GD hears the back gate open and goes for it. As the gate swings open, a half-drunk DC walks through. GD jumps out in the open, quickly shouts, "Who goes there? Who goes there?" and fires around in the air before keeping his weapon aimed at a stunned DC. PB, realizing crap's about to go down, follows protocol and coordinates the other soldiers running to the sound and frisks the DC for his papers and weapons before bringing him to Chief under armed escort as per regulation. They arrive at the Chief's office, and GD and DC are requested in to explain. GD gets to go first and explain to the Chief. "While I was on patrol duty, I heard someone coming on the grounds through a small gate in the back. As per protocol, I made myself visible, shouted twice, 'Who goes there?' and as I had not yet received an answer, fired a warning shot to apprehend the intruder." Chief realizes GD followed protocol to the letter, and punishing would require an official explanation as to what DC was doing at the back gate. He sends GD back on patrol and to take PB and the guard with him from the hallway. The door is barely closed when they hear Chief shouting at DC, "You moron! Now they all know about our way to the village. Do you know how much you screwed us officers over?" DC is sobered enough to take the earful and not make a fuss, as the alternative was a court-martial for desertion. GD walks away with a smile and a few promised beers from fellow soldiers. DC becomes unwelcome in any card games among officers for the rest of their stay. And our last story. Give us your driveway. Cast, EN entitled neighbor. ED entitled neighbor's entitled daughter. SF stepfather. M mom. S my sister. Me is me. This happened a few months ago. So at about 11:30 a.m., my family and I were heading to go to my grandparents for lunch. Sister and I were talking in the living room, and I looked towards our see-through curtains and see an unfamiliar vehicle in our driveway blocking our car. So I say, "Whose truck is that?" as I point to it. Our truck is dark red and a Chevrolet. This one was bright red and a Ram. S takes a glance and says, "It's ours." She couldn't really see, so I opened the curtains for her and said, "Oh, it's not ours." We then realized it was our next-door neighbor's truck. So we decided to go out to the garage and see what was going on. We saw stepfather and mom, and they looked confused as F. They couldn't figure out why entitled neighbor parked in our driveway when he has one of his own, bigger than ours. EN comes out of his house with his daughter, who is ED, about 5 or 6, and he comes around to the driver's side of the truck and opens it to get something out. SF goes out to talk to him, and right away, EN is very cranky. SF: "EN, why are you parked in this driveway?" EN: "Why the F do you care?" "Because it's our driveway. Why didn't you park in yours? Starting today, this driveway is also ours, and you can't do crap about it. So I suggest you move your vehicles from it immediately." SF was dumbfounded. The neighbor was usually so nice, but we didn't know what the F was going on. At this point, he was getting annoyed. "How about no? This is my driveway, and you don't need it. Yours is already huge enough as it is." Then I noticed Edie going over to our garden and picking at it. I didn't really think much of it until I heard the ripping sound of flowers being picked. Em and I look over at her again, and she's ripping every single flower out of the garden. "No," I said, quickly picking Edie up away from the garden. Em then said, "Do not ruin our garden, please." Edie starts throwing a tantrum about how she's allowed, and Ian, out of the blue, exploded. "How dare you! She's allowed to do whatever she wants! How dare you stop her from playing!" He yelled so loudly it echoed throughout the entire effing street. She wasn't playing. She was destroying the garden, and we aren't going to allow that. This is where Ian crossed the line. "Shut the F up, you dumb whore. You women have no right to speak and are just using SF for his money." Oh my God, I don't think I've ever seen SF so angry. "Get yourself, your daughter, and your truck to F off my property before I call the effing cops," SF said, basically turning red with anger. Ian went a bit pale when SF mentioned the cops. He quickly put his daughter back in the house and moved his truck into his driveway. He then didn't talk to us for weeks. A week later, though, his wife came to our door and apologized for his behavior and said he'd been drinking. My God, dude. I hope the wife divorced the entitled, toxic dad and took care of the daughter. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.